Hi, I'm Faraz Khan from iTrack Recruitment, and welcome to the Low Code Podcast, where we're dedicated to increasing awareness and appreciation of the power of low code. In this podcast, we'll hear from developers about their career journeys and how low code has enabled them to achieve new levels of success and innovation. So let's go. Hi, Derek. How are you?
Very well, and you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to take part in the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, I was very when I was kind of went through your profile, I was quite keen to get you on and find out more. So it's really good to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So yeah, it'd be good to start with tell us who you are, where you're from, a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So my name is Derek. I live in Cape Town in South Africa. I've been working in low code with Mendix, specifically with Mendix, since 2011. I'm currently the position I fill is CTO, and I'm CTO of a business that I co-founded with some friends here in Cape Town. That business name is Comotion, and we offer Mendix low-code services. So we have a branch of that called Comotion Lowcode. But we don't only do that. We're a business that involves a lot of startups or other businesses sometimes. So we've got that business also has a large data analytics platform called Dash that we offer analytics to the life insurance industry. We've got another little company called HireBright that assists employers with hiring people. That it has a very specific cognitive ability test that's quite useful for people across all industries. And then we also have another business called Analytics, and that does large data consolidation for wealth advisors. So we do a lot of kind of different things here, but at the center of my heart is definitely low code. And heavily involved with the low code community here in South Africa. We host a lot of meetups and get-togethers. Last year we hosted the low code hackathon, Mendix low code hackathon here in Cape Town. It was quite great. And that's what we do on the low code front. Personally, I've got a couple of hobbies. Obviously, love Formula One, I love my rugby, and I like to say do some CrossFit here and there. And I guess that pretty much sums me up, I'd say.
I know what team you probably support in the rugby, but what's the Formula One team then?
Man, it's Red Bull before Red Bull was winning. Let me just say that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, good. That's good to know. Yeah, I don't know if you know much about football, but it's a bit like Manchester City fans. You know,
yes.
If they're either old school, but if they're very new, then they're not really. They're just following.
Exactly. That's why I got to qualify.
Yeah, great. So just to kind of go back, I went through obviously your profile and things like that, and kind of prior to the low code, I can see kind of you kind of doing something in music and marketing. Was that your first job?
So way back, you're talking way back. That's during the student days. We had a studio radio station called Tux FM that I got involved with in South Africa, or definitely in parts of South Africa. It's quite a popular radio station. I very much enjoyed that while I was studying, actually, and responsible for some of the marketing aspects of that station.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously you kind of went on into kind of as a software engineer. What technology were you working with when you kind of first went into development?
Initially, I was a Java developer.
Java, okay.
Back in the day,
yeah.
Good old. What do they call it? Not normal code, or just normal
traditional
coding.
Traditional
code. I was a Java developer. I enjoyed it a lot, although I got to say I got a bit frustrated with kind of being behind the scenes of what the business was offering. So luckily got an opportunity to jump over to business analyst side to try and get close to the business. So started with Java development and then did some business analyst function.
And then you said you started working with Mendix in 2011. How did that kind of come across? How did you had you heard of Mendix before kind of working with it? Was it just an opportunity that you applied for and then they said, okay, this is what we use? How did you kind of first come across it?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting story. I mean, I told you I jumped to business analyst, and we're doing so I still had an understanding of the code when I was doing business analyst work, and there was one particular case when we went to a client who wrote a forex management system, and when I was at the client, they were asking for all these changes, and I knew how to do the changes, but I couldn't do it there. I had to follow process. I had to contact the developers, create stories, put it on the backlog, and there was this grumbling frustration because of this long cycles of delivering what the business actually wanted. And I think I was a little bit verbal about that. So one of my friends who was working with me, he then left. He went to another company, and that company was one of the first companies that brought Mendix into South Africa. And he was also a Java developer, and they got a demo of Mendix there. And right after the demo, he emailed me straight away and said, this is the thing you should be involved in, and sent me the link and a couple of videos. And I saw it, and immediately it would have solved that exact problem that I was frustrated with. So I immediately contacted the other company and said, I want to be involved with this. What do I have to do? Yeah. And they were only based in Cape Town at that time. I was actually working in Johannesburg. And so they gave me the opportunity to work on Mendix, and I moved down to Cape Town explicitly to work on Mendix.
Wow. And when you kind of looked into Mendix and things like that, did you ever have concerns about, obviously, even though there was that company offering you the Mendix role, at that time there wouldn't have been loads of companies, especially in South Africa, using Mendix. So is that something that crossed your mind? Because obviously when you're doing your career, Java developer roles are in abundance, right? So is that something that crossed your mind, that did you kind of go in it thinking, okay, well, I really like it, I'll just give it a go. If it doesn't work out, I can always go back? Or were you kind of a bit like, was that decision a bit more harder, like, okay, should I not?
Yeah, so I think, on the emotional side, I felt like I had a belief that I would really enjoy working with it. And so from an emotional perspective, I was happy to take the jump. But logically, I felt like in the future, there would definitely be a place for low code. And I felt like if low code really became a huge thing, I would have a head start. If it became an average thing, the architects and IT leaders in the future would have to understand the world of how you integrate low-code products with traditional development, and that would have meant that I got the relevant experience to do that. And if it didn't work out at all, then I had a problem, to be honest. But I felt like at already that stage, there was enough traction to know that in one form or another, there was going to be a future for low-code. I mean, there were other applications pre-low-code that did like model-driven development, and there were still the pockets of those kind of projects around the world. So I felt like worst case, there would always be an option. But I didn't ever feel like I had to keep one foot in the coding world to keep my experience going there. I felt like there was always going to be a future.
Yeah, you could see the potential straight away.
Yes, I could. And obviously I could see the potential, but obviously, you doubt yourself. Because the world never works out quite like how you think it will work out.
Yeah, exactly.
But definitely, I felt like I could see the potential enough to believe in it. Yeah.
And then after that role, is that when you founded your current company with your kind of friends, colleagues?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So we after that role, I founded it with two friends, and we signed up as Mendix. They called it Mendix Partners back then. Now it's called Siemens Partners.
Yeah.
And I got to say, the work back then was quite sparse in South Africa. We really had one or two opportunities to use and build Mendix, and we found that in the life insurance space. And so the teams were quite small, and the work was quite far between. But until the last few years, we've really seen this massive growth of acceptance and low code. Back then there was a lot of, you could do work and then you had to go do a lot of like I wouldn't say pitches, but we really try to convince IT leaders that you should think about it. And those would often die. You wouldn't hear anything from them after that conversation.
And then so that was 2013, right, when Comotion was founded. So you're
Correct,
celebrating 10 years then this year, is it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're
Nice.
both excited and depressed about that. But yeah, 10 years going strong is good.
That's good. Yeah, it's good that you made it to 10 years. And how is that kind of you said obviously you had the challenges in the beginning and compared to now, being kind of, working in that with the platform now for that long, especially in South Africa where you are. How have you seen the growth of Mendix in not only on the customer side, but also in the developer community side? Because you mentioned obviously meetups and things like that. So is that something that you've been involved in where you're helping grow the community as well?
I like to think so, because we put a lot of resources into building the community, to be honest. So I like to think so. But the encouraging thing really is that we find these Mendix developers all the time. We kind of thought the market, I can't say small enough because it's relatively big, but you get to know the players and you hope you think you know the community, and then it's great because you often bumping into people now that are connected with Mendix and have work experience. You have to say, how do we not know each other? You're in this world and I'm in this world. How do we not know each other? So it's now at the community is growing to the point where you operate without bumping to each other anymore. Which is quite exciting. So it's growing nicely.
And are you mainly focused on projects within South Africa, or you're international focused?
Yeah, we international focused. Our two main areas are Europe and South Africa, mainly because the time zones are so great, and South Africans have quite a, I think, close cultural connection to Europeans and the Dutch. So we Afrikaans is very similar to Dutch, and although the language isn't the same, you can very easily pick up the different words and understand what's happening.
Make it out.
You can make it out, and we're in the same time zone. So that's a really attractive business channel for us. And the projects have gone very well with down that channel. I mean, England, we also have a good cultural overlap with, and also in the same time zone. So Europe is definitely a target zone for us. South Africa, definitely. We always try and fish for US and Canadian business, but we haven't really found anything there yet. So those are the Europe and South Africa are two main zones.
Yeah, sure. And going back to, obviously now you've been working with Mendix for quite a while, and for you to be convinced such a long time ago, and obviously from then till now, there's so many upgrades and releases of certain features. In that time that you've worked with Mendix, what are some things that you think that they've released that you thought, oh wow, this has been kind of a game changer, or really kind of stepped them up to the next level?
So there's some smaller things that I'll say now that you think aren't really that great, but funny enough, they're really awesome. So the first one is single sign-on, because what Mendix has offered the world is really this ability to launch functionality rapidly, and within an organization, you want this capability to launch new functionality that either is valuable internally or externally. So something like single sign-on actually empowers the organization to be able to say to a group of people, okay, this is a good idea, go do an app, and we don't have to worry about user management and security when people leave, and how we will control those security aspects. So it's so small really, but it's actually had such impact. It's kind of that 80-20 principle. So I think that's the first one. But more aligned to your question, I think the answer is more along the lines of the way that in the IT industry, as we all know, there's these waves of very exciting technology that come and go. And it's almost like these hypes that happen every year or two.
Yeah.
And if you're IT leader, if you're CTO, you're dealing with this headache, right, all the time.
Yeah.
Like if I rewind a few years, you, for example, just got your IT stack nice and neat. There's good workflow coming through there. You've sort of solved your libraries and what happens, and suddenly mobile is a theme. Now you've got to figure out how you're going to extend your world to mobile and do it in time so that your company seems like they're at the forefront of the innovation, right?
Yeah.
That's a massive headache. And then when you've just got that nailed down, suddenly cloud is the next thing, and everybody wants to lift and shift to the cloud. And you're like, I just have to, now I have to go solve this thing. I just solved that last big fat problem.
Yeah.
So I think that the main thing that the real shift for me, or the real value generated for me for Mendix, has actually been the fact that they are anticipating these themes ahead of time. So if you've kind of invested into Mendix and mobile's a theme, you're able to quite quickly extend to the mobile world. If cloud then becomes the theme, you can quite rapidly go to Mendix Cloud or your private cloud, and those. So the responses to those themes have really been the big changer for me, more than perhaps one or two specific features along the route, and perhaps that speaks to Mendix's philosophy or underlying value proposition, to be honest, than a specific feature.
And in regards to, obviously, all the kind of, like you said, there's all these kind of hypes of certain things. Is there anything kind of that you're looking forward to in the future that you'd like to see or are expecting to see?
Yeah, well, I think we're all very interested to see how AI and large language models is really going to impact the world. I do think if you're doing traditional coding, there's a lot that can be offered in that world. I mean, we see what Copilot offers us, and even if you've got your ChatGPT just interface, you can work with it in a language way that it spits out the code you need, and that should be an accelerated process. What I honestly think, though, is those language models actually miss the domain in the middle, the non-tangible piece of information. And I think the next wave is that low-code is actually best propositioned to make the most use out of AI wave. So if you say to AI, I need a to-do list, something like that, it won't really know how to structure that in terms of database and security and language and framework. But what low-code has done is built already a accelerated model around that framework. And so I think you can use language a lot easier with a low-code interface than traditional models. So what I think maybe I'm looking too far ahead, to be honest. But what I actually think is going to happen is the AI theme will impact low-code, and I think it's going to accelerate development further, and in more accelerated pace, and I think it's going to make it more tangible for citizen developers. And low-code's one of the big themes has been citizen developer. You don't need to understand code, just come in and learn the low-code. And for very small problem space, that's been true, and I've seen it actually where you as a technical developer work with a citizen developer. You do the heavy lifting, they do the polish, definitely. But I think what large language models and large language AI will do to AI is empower the citizen developer more on a low-code platform that allows professionals, doesn't remove professionals' jobs. I think just allows professionals to then work deeper problems and shift more standard stuff to citizen developers. That's what I think.
And I guess it also allows, like, low-code has this message of business and development kind of together, right? So it allows that kind of relationship to be even stronger.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that's a bit far away. I think, to be honest, if I bring it all the way back to maybe a 12-month horizon, I think composable apps will probably be the next theme that we'll start seeing out of low-code vendors, where enterprises and company groups want to, rather, instead of rebuilding things the whole time, they want to just very efficiently reuse things that have already been built. Instead of having 7 CRMs in your enterprise, have one. For example, manage the security, the upgrade paths, the maintenance around that one app, but be able to use it in different places, whether you deploy it or that's at build time or deploy time or services. I think that's a bit of a variance in the flavor, but I think composable apps will probably be the next theme that low-code vendors will start to wrestle with.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, kind of, in the early days, not many kind of customers in South Africa on the Mendix side.
Yeah.
Now kind of operating for 10 years, and with low code kind of, I think the term before, even a lot of people didn't even know what the term low code was. So
yeah.
do you feel like now, as kind of you're getting, it's kind of known everywhere, when you're, as a business owner and you're kind of pitching to customers, do you find it's a lot more, they're taking to it a lot easier, and that selling point is a lot easier, and customers are more kind of open to low code?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll give you a few examples actually.
Yeah.
So what we saw before is kind of, when you came in to talk about low code, you were almost like a guest speaker. It's like nice, we'll consider your thoughts.
Yeah.
But we'll take from there. Now there's a response. Either there's a response in a formal RFP. So enterprise are actually saying, we're going to understand the space and we're going to have a low code capability in our business. So we're seeing more of those. The smaller companies are starting to say, we've got to do a trial. So they'll assign one person to go and do a couple of sample experiments on various low code vendors, and or we'll actually get people phoning us up or contacting us to say, we do want to learn more about low code. So those are kind of the three ways that we've actually materially seen the difference in response to low code.
Okay. And are you finding kind of, because I saw obviously on your website, you guys offer like a solution of pods, right? So that's right. Your team, you supply a team. Do you have, where sometimes a customer will obviously say, okay, we're going to use Mendix. We've already got existing team of traditional developers. So is that kind of, would that process be that you would kind of have your team work closely with their team to bring them up to speed? Or, how is that? Because obviously there are sometimes, there might be people who don't want to transition over, so have you come across that kind of situation before?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why one of the main reasons we went with the pod model, the concept of team. And the concept of this pod is you always have a senior leader that leads the team, and then you'll have multiple people within that pod. And the core pod has to be Comotion members, but you as a company can add members to the pod. So if we went to company A and company A signed up with Mendix and they wanted to build the capability, we would say, let's do version 1 of your strategy. We'll create this pod. If you've got no skill, we'll do the first version of the application. If you got skill, allow that person to come and join our pod. And the whole reason we went with pods is that we wanted a form of redundancy, and we wanted a form of knowledge transfer beyond just the technology. So a lot of companies, they'll say, you can, if you pull one person out, you can just put the same person with the same certification quality, same level of person in, and you should be going. But we all know that the domain knowledge you pick up in a company is incredibly valuable, and that's where you spend a lot of your time. So the pod concept really comes around being able to share that domain knowledge with people joining that team. So if you want a measure of redundancy, you can expand the pod to 3-4 members. If you want minimum redundancy, you got at least 2. But that means at all times you're going to have somebody that knows the core system, the business rules, the company, all the aspects well, and have that knowledge transfer that's a little bit hard to describe because it's quite informal. It's not academic knowledge transfer. When you're in the trenches solving solutions with people, you learn in a different way to the formal process. And I'll give you one example. Actually, we had one of our team members, he was at a client, and just over coffee with the Mendix developer from the client, they just coffee and they say, what would you do if you had to implement this solution and this feature? And the employee could give a theoretical answer, and our developer, who's the head of the pod there, could say, that's right, but you've forgotten about this aspect and this aspect. So you have to remember when implementing. And that's a very cheap way of learning. The other way of learning is just let the guy do it and let him figure out the hard way. What about those two things, So that company received a lot of knowledge transfer through that engagement, and that's what we try and create in our pods is not just the language or the technology learning, but the business value that comes with it.
And I'd say every project it's bespoke, isn't it? There's different things each customer will take from your pod, and what it's not going to be consistent what everyone's taking from it.
No, not at all. Yeah. And that's why, we try and also just align our strengths with the various verticals. So if there's somebody with experience in developing life insurance systems, we'll put them with a life insurance customer. If there's somebody who's done manufacturing, we'll put them in, because that's the experience that you want to gain and transfer throughout the members of that team.
Yeah. And speaking about projects, is there, can you tell us about kind of, a real kind of interesting client project you may have worked on, which would be interesting to hear about?
Yeah, look, I got a few. I mean, we've got some life insurance platforms that we've built that is pretty interesting, because the life insurance industry, to be honest, has been quite static, and everybody's kind of expecting this innovation to hit that industry or not ever. It's like one of those things. So Mendix has been great for generating some experiments around product types and being able to go to market quickly. We've got some interesting stuff in the manufacturing section, where we're developing adaptive factory floors, which is super interesting. We're actually connecting with drivers on the factory floor into Mendix, and then allowing you to adapt the real world based on how rapidly you can do low-code tools. So it's quite an interesting product. I think the one that it isn't an external one, the one that's actually I think I like the most, is actually our own internal system. It's called Como One. And what Como One is designed to do is our people are very, very important to us, and working in a happy place and a nice place is very important to us. And key to that is really understanding or hearing the voice of people that work for you and making sure that they're heard and those things are tracked. So what we did is built a system that keeps our managers on track, and make sure that the managers are connecting with our employees regularly. We expect them to have regular connections in the office and outside the office. And then we expect them to determine the goals of the employees, personal or corporate, and track them and make sure that our employees actually, the people who work for us, their lives are actually better off and they have a chance to do well. So one person that joined, they wanted to have a overseas holiday. And so through this process, we broke down how would you actually do that, and then every month track them on it. So are you on track with saving for this goal? Have you bought your flight tickets? Have you done this? Have you done that, to help that person reach their goal? Another guy wanted to get his driver's license, and he put in, in this process, it's a human process. It's not a remote process. This is just on the side that tracks a human. And so he wanted to get his driver's license, and he honestly thought that we would just capture it and that would be the end of it. And he was really surprised when the next month the manager rocked up, and asked him, how are you tracking on this thing? Have you started with your hours? Have you booked your lesson? And that kind of spurred him into actually doing the goal. At the end of the day, he got his driver's license, and was able to experience a kind of a level of freedom. So what we do is that, to be honest, out of all the interesting projects, clients are doing really interesting stuff, but we love that because it's an extension of our culture. And what Mendix enables us to do is respond to themes that people are facing in their life, and kind of build it in rapidly, to be able to track those things. So that's, to be honest, if I'm excited about all the projects, that one excites me the most, because it makes a material difference in people's lives that work with us.
Yeah, that's really good. And I've seen some of your, some people might know, might not know, you've got some YouTube videos out. I've watched some of your videos, and like even the things you've done, the one I like, the one never run out of electricity one was really good. And I think it was what was it called? Dizzy Modeler.
The Dizzy Modeler
on the beach. That was interesting as well. So it's good that you kind of got these interesting kind of videos out, which I think are really good. Is there kind of anything else you're working on at the moment in that side?
Yeah, well, there's one that we're working on now. That's what we're calling a remote braai machine. So we've, if you know South Africans, you'll know braai. We love braaiing. It's not the same as barbecue, and there's a lot of reasons, but not enough time now to explain it. But it's very close to it's very close to our cultural heart, the concept of a braai. So what we thought is we've got all these clients in Europe, and we are one team with them. And we remotely work well, but wouldn't it be nice to braai together somewhere? So we created this braai machine that robotically braais our meat, but the guy who actually creates the braai operates it via Mendix app somewhere else in the world. Wow. So we're actually busy shooting that one now. We were hoping to get a couple of more shots in yesterday, actually, but we had a big rainstorm. And we do braai in the rain, but not when there's a robot machine.
Of course. Yeah. Sounds cool. It sounds really good.
So that one is coming. That one's coming.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And you touched on it earlier, but I think it'd be good to kind of hear in more detail. You mentioned about, HireBright. It'd be good to kind of hear a bit more about it and what it kind of offers in detail.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what HireBright does is is a platform ultimately. And it offers a cognitive ability test. And a lot of the tests on the market are very comprehensive. They test for a wide range of properties. And because of that, the test is long or like you said, it's very wide. So what we try to do is identify just the few factors that mean the difference between performing in the workplace and non-performing. So that came down to logical reasoning, cognitive ability, and verbal reasoning. So can you verbally understand what people are saying? Can you then interpret that and build logically around it? And so we use it as a competitive differentiator because, as you know, with low code, there are more and more people available to hire for low code, but the technology is growing faster than the people available for it. So what this tool has done is enable us to find people outside of programming industry, and when we test them, we know that they're able to do work, solve problems, and therefore we've seen learn very rapidly. So we when we hire, we take everybody through this process, and there's a benchmark cognitive ability score. So there's evidence that we're not biased in our hiring process at all. It's quantifiably measurable, and then we use it to make sure we're finding top skill all the time.
Oh, it's very interesting. That actually, it's really good to hear that, and that kind of goes in well to my kind of next question, where you said obviously it's that is helping obviously build the ecosystem as well, right? And and you may have come across it, in the past with conversations with people. One thing we like to kind of ask everyone is, there might be people in your network who haven't known about low code or don't believe in low code. What's your kind of message to those people who kind of are kind of not on board with low code and just think, no, traditional is the only way?
Yeah. So that's what I'd really say is the experiment. I really say experiment. I think there's nothing stops you, like any language, to get into it and try and understand where this language or where this technology best plays in your world. A lot of the traditional developers, it's a little bit funny because if you say to them, here's the problem we need to code something for, a lot of the times they'll build a framework around that and then implement via the framework. And low code is actually behind the scenes. It's a coded framework. It's the same, exactly the same thing. Developers have coded a framework, and you use that framework to implement. So they kind of, I don't always understand the argument. They kind of say, we're not accepting low code, but we're going to do it the same way low code does it. So then you really have to understand, are you really winning from an input versus output perspective? If, fair enough. If the problem space is small enough that you can get a small team of developers to work on something and release something in a short space of time, then probably you're right. But the reality is, when you get to really meaningful software that produces value over the long term, you often find those teams, traditional development teams, have to bloat, and they inevitably get stuck in their own frameworks. Why not just go with a framework that's proven itself now for 10 years to produce good quality solutions that work, and experiment with it and see where it fits.
And do you find, now that obviously Mendix is really well known, do you find it's easier to convince traditional developers now to kind of transition compared to in the past?
So I think what's changed is developers are more open to it. I would definitely say that, but they're definitely still very, very worried about losing the track years. I think the market still says how many years have you done a specific language for, and tries to evaluate a value to that. So I've seen a lot of apprehension. Once they start developing and delivering the value, that's quite addictive. To smack things out as rapidly and as powerfully as you can. That's addictive. So I see a transition over. But I think, for traditional developers, I think, like I said earlier on, the world is in such a place where you can't architect a solution without considering a low-code platform somewhere. And if you're only going to wait till the end of your career to design a solution with low-code, your solutions are going to be frustrated. Ultimately, I would really encourage you to spend a few years in low-code. Just get 2 years, 3 years experience in understanding what it takes to deliver a low-code platform, and just means as your career elevates, you actually are more valuable in the long run, not less valuable. So that's what I would encourage everybody to do.
Great. And not long ago, you were kind of announced as a MVP, Mendix MVP.
Yes.
Usually, obviously, there's certain things that people do to kind of be recognized as an MVP. What was your kind of contribution? Yeah.
So the contribution originally, there's a calculation based on scores of your engagement, your certification levels, and those type of things. And now it's changing to more specific stuff. So my contribution is more on the cultural side, community side. And from this point onwards, that's why we do meetups in South Africa and host hackathons and create videos and content and those type of things. For me, I enjoy the technical aspect, but to me, the technical aspect only goes so far, and what I'd much rather do is empower others to be able to take that further. And to be honest, there's probably a lot better developers than I ever was. So it's just better for the world, actually, if they develop and I don't. But but that's been my main contribution, really, is that that we've really tried to push the things we've spoken about earlier, actually, adoption, acceptance of the language, helping people understand that it's a valuable technology, showing them that it's a valuable technology, getting people on board. I mean, the one guy, it was really great. The one day I bumped into a guy in the mall. I said to him, "We're doing the hackathon next week, you should come." He arrived, did the hackathon, left on Saturday, and then got his cert on Sunday.
Wow,
and
that's
got
cool.
right into it, So that's a guy and he was a data scientist, right? So he didn't actually have development experience. So those stories are really great, to be able to see someone find enjoyment in the technology. I really love that.
And I guess it's fulfilling for yourself as well, to kind of know you're part of that person's journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And just a final question, your business is 10 years old, for what's your kind of, for your business and personal kind of, what's the aspirations for the future? What your kind of any plans or any targets that you guys are looking to achieve?
Yeah, so I think, on business level, Comotion Lowcode, we really want to service the European market. Like I said earlier, same time zone, great cultural overlap, and we've got a good track record already. So the immediate focus is definitely on improving our presence in Europe. We've got a very small sales office there, and so we do have some sort of presence, but we want to accelerate that. I think culturally, we really want to still continue to invest into the South African user experience and cultural experience, and we've done well there. And I think globally, you know, with Mendix Malta, the YouTube video channel, we really want to. Every year we have a lot of dreams, and then there's a lot of work that takes time from us doing that. But you know, it's I really enjoy the creative process. Like you said, you know, we created microflows on the beach the one time.
Yeah, really cool.
We built in lockdown, we built a slap bet machine. That, you know, so if you make a serious bet with somebody, it's a slap bet, and if you lose, you get a slap with the robot machine. So you know, we have these crazy ideas, and some of them we're actually not allowed to do because of the health and safety rules in South Africa. So only the founders are allowed to get slapped. Let me just say it like that. So,
fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. So we got to be honest, those creative ideas and then building them out is a hell of a lot of fun. You know, so I really hope we can carry on with those aspects.
Yeah, even just watching the videos, you can see that your whole team is kind of, you know, really on board, and it seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. If you visit South Africa, we'll pull you in on one.
Yeah, one day for sure, definitely. Well, thanks for your time, Derek. It was really good to talk to you and kind of, you know, hear your thoughts on things.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. It was great to chat.
Amazing. And yeah, hopefully we do get to meet in person, either in South Africa or maybe in Europe sometime.
Maybe. I'll definitely, when I visit again, I'll definitely look you up.
Sounds good. Thanks, Derek.
Thanks. Cheers.